As a student who attends public school, I thankfully never had to encounter a situation needing to truly defend myself during a school day. Sadly, this has not been the case of many. Several of our nation's schools have been the targets of gunmen. After tragedies like Columbine, Virginia Tech, and the most recent being Sandy Hook shooting, the argument continues as to whether teachers should have the right to carry firearms. Some argue that if they are licensed and trained, they have the right to protect their class. Others contend that having a concealed weapon in school will only put the children more at risk. What is the best decision?
We would cause a more dangerous situation having that many more guns in school and available. Not that I believe teachers would do anything wrong with them, but they're there and they're available. They're available for anyone who happens to come into the schools. They're available for any students who may not, who may have some mental illness challenges. And if they know that all teachers carry guns, then they know that that's available in almost all the classrooms.
I've been in a lot of trainings for safety, not only in schools, but I also work at a summer camp. And I've been in a lot of safeties for what to do if a gunman is near you. There's a lot of strategies and techniques that people have come up with to keep you safe without a weapon. It would be alarming to me for a teacher to have that kind of weaponry in school.
So if somebody, a teacher, a principal, a janitor, had a concealed carry permit, they should be able to carry a gun. And if some dirtbag comes in and tries to shoot the place up, they're not going to likely have to wait 20 minutes, which was the wait in Newtown. And that's a little longer than average, but it certainly wasn't off the charts. And especially in a kind of a semi-rural area that Newtown is. So the first responder has to be armed, and the first responder is going to be some adult there at the school.
I think guns should be allowed in schools by teachers and school personnel that have been trained and are willing to have the responsibility of having guns in the school.
Well, if teachers would have guns in school, or not just teachers but also administrators, if they would have guns in school, I think it would keep the schools much safer. You can never predict when an incident would occur, when a gunman would come into a school. You can never predict that. So I always use the saying, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So if my teachers would have a weapon in school, secure in their desk or in the classroom, I think it'd make it much safer. And again, it's better to be safe than sorry.
If this were to be passed, it's agreed that teachers would be well trained and know the importance of gun safety. Some faculty might not be comfortable carrying, so it would probably be on a voluntary basis. If this were to be passed, it could save lives. On the other hand, schools are already trained for the possibility of a shooting, but would that be enough to save them?
Schools should be sure that they have techniques to handle situations when violence could arise, like how do you break up a fight between two people without using a gun? How do you, if someone were to come into the building, what is our protocol for if a gunman were to come into our building? How do we protect ourselves from them? And all of our school has those things. So that's why I personally don't believe we need it. And the cop actually came, the state trooper, on the day we did our code, our lockdown drill last year. He came into my room and told the kids, because they were goofing around, and said, why should we hide anyway? They could just break the door. And he said with the Virginia Tech shooting, the people who stayed, they lived. The people who tried to escape or who tried to fight the gunman, they died. So statistically, if we follow those stats, then if in a situation, if a gunman were to come into our building and we stayed, then hopefully that technique would work.
These gunmen, except for one, they choose this place. They know no one will be armed. You know, having been a judge and having reviewed photographs of these horrific scenes and knowing that children have these defensive wounds, gunshots through their arms and hands as they try to protect themselves, and hearing the heroic stories of the principal lunging, trying to protect Chris, I wish to God she had had an M4 in her office locked up, so when she heard gunfire, she pulls it out, and she didn't have to lunge heroically with nothing in her hands, but she takes him out, takes his head off before he can kill those precious kids.
If we would go down this lane, I would really want to talk to groups of students to see what students' feelings are. Not that if a student group says we don't like this, that okay, then we won't have it. But I think I would need that information to really help make the decision on what our policy would be, so that we're sure when we're developing something that we've taken everything into account that we could possibly think of.
Overall, each school is different and will have different ways of handling these situations. I certainly think that every school should have a security or a resource officer that is trained specifically for this purpose. However, I think there should be a set expectation for each school for what to do if an intruder enters. If we entrust our teachers with firearms for this purpose, it is solely for our students' protection.